Pyramids. They're massive, they're mysterious, they've been standing tall for 4,500 years, and according to a new group of scientists, they might be hiding something incredible beneath them.
For more than 400 or 500 years, humanity has believed that every secret of the Great Pyramid had already been uncovered. We mapped its chambers, measured every stone, and placed its history neatly inside our textbooks. But in 2025, researchers used cosmic ray particles to penetrate the massive stone blocks and radar signals to probe deep beneath the ground. What they detected appeared to reveal something that should not exist, hidden even farther beneath Giza. Something that could rewrite the entire history of the pyramids as we know it. The void that should not exist. For more than a century, archaeologists maintained that the interior of the Great Pyramid of Khufu had been fully explored. 3 main chambers, the passages connecting them, and nothing more. Its internal structure had been mapped, classified, and considered a closed case long ago. Then in 2017, the Scan Pyramids project shattered that consensus. Scan Pyramids is an international research collaboration involving Cairo University, the Technical University of Munich, and institutions from France, Canada, and Japan. Their method required no drilling and no removal of stone. Instead, they used muon imaging, a technique that relies on cosmic ray particles capable of passing through millions of tons of limestone. Where the stone is less dense than expected, more muons pass through. Where an empty space exists, the data reveals it. And the data revealed an enormous void. The space measured roughly 130 feet in length and was located above the Grand Gallery in a position no one had anticipated. This was not a narrow crack or a small pocket of air trapped inside the stone. It was a substantial space hidden within the most intensively studied ancient structure on Earth, yet it had remained undetected for thousands of years. The findings were published in Nature, widely regarded as one of the highest standards in scientific publishing. 6 years later, in 2023, Scan Pyramids confirmed another discovery. A hidden corridor measuring approximately 30 feet long was found behind the chevron stones on the pyramid's northern face. This time, the evidence extended beyond muon data. An endoscopic camera was inserted into the passage, capturing direct images of a space that human eyes had not seen in more than 400 or 500 years. The results were published in Nature Communications and reviewed by the international scientific community. Then in April 2025, Scan Pyramids produced another surprise, this time inside the Pyramid of Menkaure, the smallest of the 3 major pyramids at Giza. Researchers from Cairo University and the Technical University of Munich used 3 technologies together: ground-penetrating radar ultrasound testing and electrical resistivity tomography. They detected 2 air-filled voids behind the eastern face of the pyramid, directly behind an unusually polished section of granite. Its smooth surface closely resembled the stone surrounding the main entrance on the northern side. Professor Christian Gross of the Technical University of Munich described the possibility of a second entrance as highly plausible. The research was published in the journal NDT and E International. 3 discoveries, 3 different pyramids, 1 conclusion. Even after more than 400 or 500 years and centuries of modern archaeology, Giza has not revealed everything it conceals. Yet all of these discoveries were located inside the pyramids, hidden among the stone blocks. In early 2025, 2 completely separate research teams began searching in another direction. They were no longer looking inside the monuments, but beneath them. What they claimed to have found would ignite the greatest controversy in Egyptology since the opening of Tutankhamun's tomb: the shape beneath the sand. The Western Cemetery of Giza lies directly beside the Great Pyramid of Khufu. This was where members of the royal family and senior officials of the Old Kingdom were buried inside mastabas. These were rectangular tombs with flat roofs constructed from limestone or mud brick, with vertical shafts descending into burial chambers below. Hundreds of mastabas stand in orderly rows, arranged according to a clear and deliberate plan. But in the middle of the cemetery there is an empty space. It is a flat area with no visible structure on the surface, surrounded by royal tombs and located beside one of the most famous monuments in the world. For decades, no one excavated the site because there appeared to be nothing there. Egyptologist Peter Dermanuelian of Harvard University confirmed that the area had escaped investigation for a remarkably long time. Between 2021 and 2023, a joint Japanese and Egyptian research team decided to look beneath the surface. The team included scientists from Tohoku University, Higashi Nippon International University, and Egypt's National Research Institute of Astronomy and Geophysics. They did not begin by digging. Instead, they deployed 2 remote sensing technologies. The first was ground-penetrating radar, which sends radar waves into the earth and measures the returning signals to map buried structures. The second was electrical resistivity tomography, which sends electrical currents through the ground and measures resistance to identify the materials hidden below. The results revealed two distinct anomalies. The first appeared only about 1.6 to 6.6 feet beneath the surface. It was a sharply defined L-shaped structure measuring roughly 33 feet by 49 feet. The data indicated that the structure had been filled with sand after it was built. It had not simply been buried by natural processes over time. Someone appeared to have deliberately covered it. Professor Motoyuki Sato, the project leader and an expert in electromagnetic remote sensing at Tohoku University, told Live Science that the shape was far too sharp to be natural. The second anomaly lay directly beneath the first at a depth of roughly 16 to 33 feet. It was larger, measuring about 33 feet by 33 feet, and displayed unusually high electrical resistance. This suggested the presence of a void, possibly a space containing air or loose material rather than solid stone or tightly compacted soil. The researchers proposed that the shallow L-shaped structure may once have served as an entrance leading into the deeper space below. Their study, published in the journal Archaeological Prospection in 2024, concluded that the radar and resistivity results indicated the possible presence of archaeological remains. More importantly, the researchers argued that the site required urgent excavation to determine its true purpose. That excavation has now begun. Reports from the Japanese and Egyptian team during 2025 and 2026 indicate that the area has already produced early discoveries, including tomb structures and an ancient ceremonial road. This was not an anonymous claim posted online. The discovery was published in a reviewed scientific journal conducted in official cooperation with an Egyptian research institution, and followed by excavation under established archaeological procedures. It demonstrates something simple but deeply significant. Directly beside the Great Pyramid, beneath layers of sand, artificial structures still exist that humanity never knew were there. But in March 2025, another research team claimed to have found something on an entirely different scale, not 33 feet beneath the ground, but more than 1,970 feet below the surface, 100 feet into the darkness. On March 22, 2025, before an audience of roughly 1,000 people and thousands more watching live on YouTube, a team of 4 researchers presented what they described as the greatest discovery in the history of Egyptian archaeology. The team consisted of Professor Corrado Malanga of the University of Pisa, Dr. Filippo Biondi, a radar and remote sensing researcher affiliated with the University of Strathclyde in Scotland, explorer Armando May, and communications director Nicole Ciccolo. Their initiative was called the Khafra Research Project, and its investigation focused on the Pyramid of Khafra, the second largest pyramid at Giza. The technology they used was not conventional ground-penetrating radar. Instead, they analyzed commercial satellite data produced through synthetic aperture radar known as SAR, together with a technique developed by Biondi called SAR Doppler tomography. The basic principle works like this. A satellite transmits radar signals toward the surface. Tiny vibrations produced by natural seismic waves cause underground structures to move by fractions of an inch. Software designed by Biondi then converts the reflected radar signals into acoustic data, supposedly allowing researchers to see far deeper than traditional radar systems. What they claimed to have seen exceeded every expectation. According to the team, the SAR data revealed 8 cylindrical vertical shafts, each descending approximately 126 feet beneath the surface and arranged in 2 parallel rows. Spiral structures appeared to wrap around the shafts, possibly serving as routes downward. 5 layered structures were said to lie near the base of the pyramid, connected by geometric passageways. The scans also appeared to show 2 cube-shaped chambers, each measuring roughly 262 feet on every side. The entire system was described as extending for about 1.2 miles and potentially connecting the underground spaces beneath all 3 major pyramids. Nicole Ciccolo declared that the discovery could redefine our understanding of the sacred landscape of ancient Egypt by providing spatial coordinates for underground structures that had never before been identified or explored. The researchers interpreted the radar images as evidence of artificial architecture rather than natural geological formations. They even proposed an age of up to 38,000 years for some of the features. To understand the scale of the claim, consider this. A depth of 226 feet is almost twice the height of the Eiffel Tower. Chambers measuring 262 feet on each side would be larger than any ancient underground space ever discovered. Were these claims proven correct, an enormous hidden complex would exist beneath the Giza Plateau, far beyond anything previously documented by archaeology. It would imply construction by a civilization with engineering abilities that accepted history does not recognize. The story spread across social media almost instantly. Videos received millions of views on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. The phrase "underground city beneath the pyramids" became a global trend. Within the scientific community, however, the reaction was entirely different. The concerns raised by specialists were not based on emotion or automatic rejection. They centered on precise technical questions that the Malanga and Biondi team had not yet answered. The claim under fire. Professor Lawrence Conyers of the University of Denver is one of the world's leading specialists in the archaeological use of ground-penetrating radar. Radar technology is not unfamiliar territory for him. He has spent his entire career studying and applying it. He also had direct experience with the work of Malanga and Biondi because in 2022 he was invited to review their first paper for an MDPI journal concerning the use of SAR to scan the Great Pyramid. Conyers offered a complicated assessment. He described the methodology as promising, meaning that the basic concept behind SAR Doppler tomography was not inherently unreasonable, yet he was deeply uncertain about the conclusions the researchers drew from their data. According to Conyers, those conclusions depended on mathematical formulas so complex that even he, an experienced radar specialist, could not verify their validity during the review process. Speaking to the Washington Times, Conyers made the distinction clear. The method itself and the interpretation of the data produced by that method were two entirely different things. I was especially skeptical of the claim that radar could penetrate hundreds of meters underground. Throughout decades of fieldwork, he had found that conventional ground-penetrating radar normally reached only about 33 feet before the signal became too weak. Radar waves are gradually absorbed by rock, sand, and soil as they travel deeper. A claimed scanning depth of 126 feet, more than 60 times farther, would therefore require exceptionally strong evidence. Even so, Conyers acknowledged that there was one definitive way to determine whether the findings were real targeted excavation. The response from Egyptian specialists was far more severe. Dr. Hussein Abdel Basir, director of the Antiquities Museum at the Bibliotheca Alexandrina, described the claims made by Malanga and Biondi as belonging to the realm of exaggeration and deception. Professor Lynn Dodd of the University of Southern California, a specialist in religion and spatial sciences, stated that the existing surveys, remote sensing studies, and excavations conducted at Giza had revealed no evidence of structures at the depths described by the Khafra Research Project. Egyptologist Salima Ikram added that Egyptian authorities had confirmed that the project had never received permission to conduct work at the site. Then further details emerged, making the situation even more complicated. Snopes, one of the best-known fact-checking organizations, investigated one of the most widely shared images associated with the claim. The image showed a cross-section of a pyramid with enormous structures extending deep underground. According to the detection platform Hive Moderation, the image had a 99.9% probability of having been created by artificial intelligence. It was not an actual radar result. It was an AI-generated illustration that had circulated online as though it were scientific evidence. The 2025 claims were also not presented in a newly published scientific paper that had undergone peer review. Their primary channel of release was a press conference broadcast on YouTube. The only peer-reviewed paper previously published by members of the team dated from 2022, and it examined a far narrower subject than the enormous underground system described in 2025. Another detail also attracted attention. Corrado Malanga has a long history of involvement in UFO research and claims concerning alien abduction. He has appeared on several television programs devoted to those subjects. That background does not automatically invalidate his archaeological research. It does, however, raise legitimate questions about the standard of evidence he applies when making claims with the potential to transform human history. Still, one important distinction must be preserved. Even the strongest skeptics have not argued that SAR Doppler tomography is a worthless technology. Conyers himself called the method promising. The central issue is not necessarily technology, it is the distance between the raw data and the extraordinary conclusions drawn from it, especially when no independent team has yet reproduced or verified the results. That distance leads to a deeper question. Throughout the history of archaeology, when does skepticism protect science, and when does it become a barrier to discovery? When the impossible becomes evidence, Zahi Hawass has stood on both sides of this dividing line. When Scanned Pyramids announced the discovery of the large void inside the Great Pyramid in 2017, Hawass responded cautiously. He asked for more evidence, questioned the method, and emphasized the need for independent verification. That reaction was not unreasonable. It was basic scientific caution. But the evidence continued to accumulate. The study was published in Nature. The void was confirmed through repeated scans from multiple angles. Then in 2023, the northern corridor was photographed directly with an endoscopic camera. Hawass's initial skepticism was part of the process, and the evidence eventually became strong enough to overcome it. He later joined the Scanned Pyramids project itself, and appeared as a co-author on the 2025 paper concerning the Pyramid of Menkaure. When Malanga presented claims of underground structures descending to 126 feet, Hawass rejected them as well. This time, however, his response sounded less like caution and more like contempt. In interviews, he accused the Malanga team of lying and dismissed the capabilities of a technology he openly admitted he did not fully understand. Two different reactions from the same man to two very different kinds of claims, and to some extent both reactions were reasonable. Yet the history of archaeology shows that early dismissal is not always the final verdict. Göbekli Tepe is perhaps the clearest example. When archaeologist Klaus Schmidt began excavating the site in Turkey during the 1990s, he uncovered a vast complex of stone structures filled with enormous pillars and sophisticated carvings. The site was approximately 12,000 years old, dating to around 10,000 BC. At the time, the established view held that people from this period lived only in simple hunter-gatherer communities and lacked the social organization required to build monumental architecture. Göbekli Tepe challenged that assumption directly. It took more than a decade for the archaeological community to fully recognize its importance. Karahan Tepe, a similar site excavated near Göbekli Tepe, in more recent years has strengthened the evidence even further. Complex and highly organized societies with astonishing architectural abilities existed far earlier than the accepted timeline once allowed. Both sites were initially underestimated. Both eventually forced archaeology to rewrite part of human history. But the familiar narrative that the establishment rejects an idea and reality later proves it wrong is not always true. History is also filled with sensational claims that never survived serious examination. Christopher Dunn's Giza power plant theory, first proposed in 1998, argued that the Great Pyramid was actually an ancient device for generating energy. The idea gained a large following, yet no physical evidence has ever supported it. Dunn even published another book in 2024 linking the theory to Nikola Tesla. Still, more than 2 decades of additional research have done nothing to move the idea beyond speculation. The real pattern in archaeological history is not that the establishment is always wrong or that it is always right. The real pattern is that strong evidence eventually prevails, but only when it can be independently tested, transparently published, and subjected to close scientific scrutiny. Scan pyramids required 6 years to move from its first detection to direct physical confirmation. Göbekli Tepe required more than a decade. In both cases, the evidence was not defeated. It was delayed, tested, and eventually became strong enough to overcome skepticism. The question is whether the claims made by Malanga and Biondi are following the same path, or whether they belong to the long list of theories that never progress beyond the original announcement. The answer depends on one factor the researchers do not control. Who controls what lies beneath Giza is not an archaeological site where anyone can simply arrive and begin excavating. Every research project in the area must receive approval from Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities. Excavation permits are rarely granted, especially in sensitive areas such as the Pyramid Complex and the royal cemeteries. They are almost never given to projects that directly challenge established dates or accepted historical narratives. This process exists for a valid reason. Giza is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and uncontrolled digging could cause irreversible damage to structures that have survived for thousands of years. But the system creates a paradox. A new claim is rejected because it lacks excavation evidence. Yet permission to excavate is denied because the claim lacks sufficient evidence. That cycle can continue indefinitely. In the space between a claim and its verification, genuine discoveries and exaggerated speculation can exist side by side with no reliable way to separate them. The Japanese and Egyptian team demonstrated what can happen when official cooperation is established. Their research was conducted with direct participation from Egypt's National Research Institute. Their findings were published in a reviewed scientific journal. Excavation has begun, and early discoveries, including tomb structures and an ancient ceremonial road, are gradually emerging. In this case, the process is functioning as intended. The Malanga team did not follow that path. Egyptian authorities confirmed that the Khafra research project had received no permit. The researchers relied on remote commercial satellite data from Cosmos SkyMed and Capella Space without access to the site itself. Their results were presented through a YouTube press conference rather than a new peer-reviewed scientific paper. Under those circumstances, the scientific demand for verification is not suppression. It is the most basic standard of evidence. Yet that standard does not operate in a vacuum. It exists within a landscape where science, economics, and politics intersect. Tourism contributes significantly to Egypt's economy. The Giza Plateau is one of the country's most important destinations, and the account of pyramids built by Egyptian pharaohs roughly 400–500 years ago forms the foundation of its heritage tourism industry. Any discovery that changes that story would have consequences extending far beyond archaeology. Were the monuments at Giza proven to be far older than the accepted dates or built by a different civilization, the result would not merely rewrite textbooks. It would affect national pride, cultural identity, and an industry worth billions of dollars. This does not mean that the Egyptian government is deliberately concealing the truth. It does mean that the incentive to support research reinforcing the existing account will often be stronger than the incentive to challenge it. When unequal incentives meet a centralized permit system, the result is a structure through which a genuinely surprising discovery may find it extremely difficult to complete the full process of verification. Gavin Cox, an Egyptologist with a master's degree who previously worked in oil and gas exploration using similar seismic technology, has visited Giza more than a dozen times. In July 2025, he published a detailed analysis of the Malanga controversy. Cox explained that satellite SAR does not see through the ground in the conventional sense. It infers possible structures from behavior detected at the surface, and its accuracy declines sharply with depth. In his assessment, claims of detailed architecture at a depth of 126 feet extend far beyond the demonstrated capabilities of any current remote sensing technology. But Cox did not deny that many unknown structures may still exist beneath Giza. He asked only that the evidence meet the required standard. Until it does, the claim remains only a claim. In this case, the distance between the claim and the evidence does not result simply from a lack of technology or determination. It is also produced by a system in which the authority to excavate rests in very few hands, and where the line between protecting cultural heritage and controlling information can sometimes become difficult to see. Giza's map of the unknown. When all the evidence is brought together, three distinct levels emerge. The first level contains what has been proven facts that no serious scientist disputes. Inside the Great Pyramid of Khufu is a void approximately 130 feet long that remained unknown to humanity for more than 4,500 years. It was confirmed through muon imaging and published in Nature. A hidden corridor measuring roughly 30 feet behind the chevron stones on the northern face was photographed directly with an endoscopic camera in 2023. Two air-filled voids concealed behind the eastern face of the Pyramid of Menkaure suggest the possibility of a second entrance. They were detected through three separate technologies and reported in NDT and E International in 2025. Beneath the Western Cemetery beside the Great Pyramid, at least one artificial L-shaped structure was deliberately buried with evidence suggesting a deeper space below it. The findings were published in Archaeological Prospection in 2024, and the site is now being excavated. This level is not theoretical. It consists of evidence that has been reviewed, verified, and in some cases physically excavated. The second level contains reasonable ideas that remain unconfirmed. SAR Doppler tomography may be capable of reaching deeper than conventional ground-penetrating radar. Even some of its strongest critics have described the method as promising. Additional structures may exist beneath Giza beyond those already confirmed. That possibility is entirely reasonable given the long history of new spaces being discovered at the site. Biondi's method, if independently verified by other research teams, could create an entirely new field of remote archaeological investigation. All of these possibilities are plausible. None has yet been proven. The third level contains speculation that extends beyond the available data. A city-sized underground complex descending 126 feet, an age of 38,000 years, spiral stairways and chambers measuring 262 feet on every side, an advanced civilization predating ancient Egypt and responsible for constructing the entire system. The cross-section images circulating across social media were generated by artificial intelligence. There has been no independent verification, no new peer-reviewed paper, and no official research permit. These are three different levels, and the boundaries between them determine how every claim should be judged. This brings us back to the central question. When evidence from multiple sources, some reliable and some not yet confirmed, indicates that unknown structures may exist beneath Giza, does the establishment's rejection represent scientific caution or deliberate control? The answer does not belong entirely to either side. Hawass dismissed Malanga with contempt, yet he also joined Scan Pyramids and appeared on the paper confirming voids in Menkaure. The same man displayed two different reactions to two different standards of evidence. The permit system protects ancient heritage from uncontrolled excavation, yet it can also prevent independent testing of controversial claims. The archaeological establishment once underestimated Göbekli Tepe, but it has also been correct in rejecting dozens of supposedly history-changing theories over the past century. What is truly remarkable is not that one research group has made an extraordinary claim. It is that the distance between a claim and its verification can continue indefinitely when no genuinely independent system of testing is allowed to function. Malanga may be correct, But unless another research team is permitted and able to reproduce his method, the claim will remain suspended between discovery and speculation, never conclusively proven and never definitively rejected. Meanwhile, the evidence that can be verified continues to be tested. Scan Pyramids continues scanning. The Japanese and Egyptian team continues excavating. Every new discovery, every void, every corridor, and every buried structure confirms the same reality. Giza still holds secrets that modern technology is only beginning to reach. The final question is not whether something else remains beneath the plateau. Based on all available evidence, the answer is almost certainly yes. The real question is who will be allowed to find it, which methods they will be permitted to use, and whether the complete results will ever be revealed to the world. Giza has already proven that it knows how to keep a secret. For 400 or 500 years, it has done so remarkably well. But technology is beginning to narrow the distance between what lies beneath the sand and what humanity is capable of seeing. Once that technology advances far enough, no permit system and no amount of skepticism will be able to prevent the truth from emerging. It is only a matter of time.